AITA for calling my roommate's family a bunch of misogynists and asking her to move out. Throwaway because RM knows about my main. At 26F am an assistant loco pilot, a train driver in layman's terms. If you haven't already guessed, it's an extremely male-dominated position, with women not being recruited for the job until around 20 years ago. It wasn't my dream job. It was my father's job that I was offered by the railways after his accident in the line of duty, and I had to take over for my family as the breadwinner. On to the point. I live in a city away from home, so I rent a flat with a younger woman who is studying. She studies for late hours, so she doesn't have a problem with my crazy schedules, as I have a ton of night duties that don't follow any shift system. I do pay more rent because she's a student and I sort of inconvenience her with my schedule. However, recently, after her family visited her and went back, she started being cold towards me. When I confronted her about it, she said her mother didn't like the way I behave and that I'm practically a man. The way I behave is wear a shirt and trousers pair, that's the uniform for it. In case it wasn't clear, to work on small electric projects during leisure time. That's something my father and I used to do when I was younger, and it's a memory I hold of him. According to my RM's mom, having such a job, dressing up like a man, working on man stuff, her words, not mine, practically makes me a man, and that my RM should be wary of me. And the next thing I might start doing is drinking until late and having rowdy alcohol parties with my work buddies at the flat we share. Even if it isn't my dream job, I take it seriously because I have two younger siblings, my mom and my grandparents, to support. It's not obvious, but the job gives a lot of physical and mental stress. I said if that's the problem for her, maybe RM should be moving out of the flat to make her misogynistic family happy. The only reason we got the flat to rent is because I'm a government employee and I pay more share of the rent in compensation for the inconveniences. My RM then called me an A and other profanities because she can't find a place so soon as she's a student, and it's unfair of me to ask her to move out because of her old-fashioned family. TLDR roommate's family called me too masculine and told her to be wary of me. So I asked her to move out. Added for info, since I saw a couple questions. I work in the Indian Railways. The Indian Railways is a central government organization. It has a scheme for the employees to offer their spouses a pension or offer their eldest child a job when the employee dies before their retirement or gets unfit to work. In case of the eldest child taking the job, if the child is an adult, they are given training immediately while being paid a stipend. If the child isn't an adult, the spouse is given a pension until the child gets old enough to take on the job. WIBTA for telling my wife I'm unhappy with how she planned our family vacation. My wife and I have preteen triplets who we take on vacation every year. Critical information is that while we share finances, she makes about 3 times what I do, and we are more accurately, she uses her bonus each year for vacations. She is happy to do this as far as I know. This year I suggested Colorado. Not only is it one of the most beautiful areas in our country, but I happened to be stationed there many years ago. Also, it would provide me with the opportunity to spend time with, and possibly say goodbye to, one of my closest friends who has stage 4 liver cancer. I expressed my wish to spend some quality time with him as she was booking the trip. She stated we weren't going to fly all the way there just to hang out at his house, and planned many activities for the week. We just got home from this trip, and due to her scheduling activities for the vast majority of the time, I got to see my friend cumulatively for less than half of a day. And to clarify, she would not have been comfortable taking the kids to any of the activities without me. He just texted me to thank me for visiting, but expressed some frustration that we had so little time together. I shared the same feeling, as it may be the last time I see him. WIBTA for telling her I'm upset that she didn't allocate more time for me to see him. I'm already questioning myself because we went on her dime. ETA he has an in-ground pool and stuff in his backyard, so a day or two there wouldn't have been boring. WIBTA for writing an intentionally bad lore for someone who wants to get into med school. A little background. I work as a physician in the emergency department. In the emergency department there are what we call emergency technicians. They basically perform the same jobs as a CNA, as well as collect blood work, EKGs, perform splints, etc. A lot of the techs coming through usually use it as a stepping stone. They either work here before nursing school or as a gap year before going to medical PA graduate school. Recently, a tech that has worked here for a couple months asked me to write him a letter of rec for medical school. Over the years I've written multiple letters of recommendation for the techs that pass through. I'm always in favor of paying it forward to the next generation of professionals. The problem is that he is hands down the worst possible person to become a physician. He's lazy, bigoted, self-righteous, and has an almost callous disregard for human life. He won't do any work unless you tell him to his face and remind him several times. I've overheard him say various racist, sexist, transphobic comments. He'll ignore call lights, won't round on patients, or just go off and hide. I've asked the nurses and other techs about him in case I got the wrong impression, and they are just done with him and his shit at this point. Whenever I talk to him about being a physician, all he talks about is the money, and yes, that's definitely a factor, but it's not the end all be all. I've never met a human being who would make a worse physician than him. So Wibta if I wrote a lore that heavily advocated against his admission, or should I just refuse to write one? AITA for immediately calling a towing company on someone's car without informing the driver first. I live in a gated community and visitors must always check in with the office to receive a guest parking pass. They also must park in the designated parking lot made for guests only. Late last night, I got home at around 2 a.m. and saw a car already parked in my spot. I didn't know whose car it was nor who parked there. The parking pass showed an apartment number but couldn't even find the apartment building or number since the complex is massive. I was also exhausted to even walk into every building and every floor to find the unit. I couldn't just type in the address on Google Maps since it would just show up as the leasing office. I also couldn't park in the guest spot since I didn't have a ticket to enter and the office closed at 12 a.m. I didn't have anywhere to park my car, so as a last resort, I called the tow truck company to get the car removed. This morning, I got ready to head out to work and was greeted by the driver who parked their car in my spot standing next to my car. She started to get upset and told me that I should have let her know to move her car and claims that I have to pay for the towing fee. She then took a picture of my plate and walked away. AITA for not letting the driver know to move their car before calling the towing company. AITA for telling my sister I'm not helping at all with her baby when it's born. My 18F sister 16F got pregnant from her boyfriend at school who, surprise surprise, moved with his entire family the second he found out. She's currently due in 6 months, and obviously isn't doing the best mentally right now. She'll be able to finish this year at school, but starting next year they have some kind of online course program so she can still graduate while taking care of the baby. Our parents made it this baby is her responsibility, and aside from watching it when and only when she's at work, they aren't going to contribute to its care at all. The plan is for her to work starting now until she can, then start working again to pay for the kid once she recovers. I think that's fair. It will be her child after all, and I think even agreeing to watch it at all is very generous. I feel the same way, and told her I'm not doing anything. I don't like kids, so I'm not holding it, watching it, feeding it, anything. When I told her this, she broke down crying and said I don't realize how hard this is. I reminded her that that's not my problem, and it's not too late to change her mind if she can't handle it. She pretty much blocked both me and our parents out after that. She never talks to any of us anymore. On one hand I feel bad because I'm sure this is a lot for her, but again that's her responsibility. Some of my friends think I'm being too heartless to my future niece-nephew, but I didn't make them, so I don't see that as my problem. AITA for refusing to share a single piece of my mom's art. My parents got married straight out of high school, had me 25F right away and then split up when I was 3, but they stayed close friends till the day my mother died. My dad remarried Anna when I was 7. She had a daughter Eve 22F. Then they had our brother Jake 16M together. Jake was really sick when he was a toddler, so our parents spent a lot of time at the hospital with him. And I spent a lot of time at my mom's house. Eve's dad worked weird hours, so my mom was more than happy to take Eve to most of the time. She loved hanging out with kids. My mom was a talented and passionate artist and she was determined to foster a love of art in us. And she did for both of us, but Eve is far more talented than I am, and my mom bonded over their shared love of painting. My mother passed away suddenly this January. I was always extremely close with her, and I still am completely devastated. I still can't accept that she's gone forever. I miss her so much. In late April, I finally got up the spirit to start organizing her things. Eve approached me after I mentioned that I was going to my mother's home to sort through some stuff, and she asked me if she could look through my mom's paintings and have a few as a keepsakes because my mother was such an inspiration for her. I don't want to. I refused. Not the paintings. I'm willing to give her clothes, jewelry, furniture, almost anything, but the paintings and journals are closest things I've left to my mom. There's pieces of her soul in there. It's not just stuff. They're the most personal items she left, and I don't want to let a single one go. Eve got really upset and said she didn't care about any of the other things either. And she didn't think she was asking for that much. She said my mother was an important person in her life and that they had a strong relationship. Eve believes that if my mother would have left her something if she had the opportunity to decide. I still said no, and Eve went to her mom to complain, and now my immediate family is torn on the issue and arguing when we see each other. My dad understands but thinks I can give up one or two, and that I might change my mind in a couple years once the pain isn't so fresh, and I do think that could have happened before, but Eve and Anna are pushing me so hard on it and being passive-aggressive towards me, and I feel completely different about them now. We all used to be close. I understand she wasn't a stranger to my mom, but that's just not enough to me. I think my own grief is bigger, and to ask me for such a personal thing so soon after her death was insensitive. And I'm ever more upset that they don't even see the irony of Eve sending her own living mother after me for my dead mom's stuff. My boyfriend wants me to just give her one and repair my family, so I stop tormenting myself, but I think I want to stand my ground here. So AITA?